Welcome to this explainer. You know how sometimes, the harder you try to perfectly manage your health routine, the meals, the workouts, the whole shebang, the more totally stressed out you actually feel? Well, you are absolutely not alone. Today, we're unpacking the science behind the stress hormone to show you why it's actually your body's most critical key to survival and exactly how to get it working for you instead of against you. So let's just tackle this pervasive online myth right out of the gate. The idea that true health means somehow eliminating this hormone completely. I mean, we've all seen the headlines, right? Cortisol makes you fat. Now, there is a tiny grain of truth buried in there, but it massively oversimplifies what is arguably one of the most crucial molecules in your entire biology. Cortisol is not your enemy. In fact, you literally wouldn't survive without it. So how exactly does a hormone designed purely for short-term survival end up becoming so toxic for us? Well, the real problem isn't the cortisol itself. It's the fact that our modern environment keeps our body's stress response switched on, day after day, without a single break to just catch our breath. Here is our roadmap for the explainer. We'll start with the misunderstood stress hormone, dive into what cortisol actually does, look at your natural cortisol rhythm, compare acute versus chronic stress, explore its connection to inflammation and weight, and finally, wrap up with restoring your cortisol rhythm.
All right, Section 1, the misunderstood stress hormone, moving beyond the internet myths.
Whenever your brain perceives any kind of threat, whether that's physical or emotional, it instantly triggers what's called the HPA axis. Basically, the hypothalamus in your brain senses danger, taps your pituitary gland on the shoulder, which then shouts down to your adrenal glands, sitting right on top of your kidneys, to deploy cortisol. It's this incredibly fast, highly coordinated communication network that springs into action before you even consciously realize you're stressed. Moving to Section 2, what cortisol actually does, the science of survival.
Even though it gets totally villainized as just a stress hormone, cortisol's day-to-day resume is incredibly vast. Honestly, without it, everyday activities would be impossible. It maintains your blood glucose between meals so you don't crash. It supports your cardiovascular function so your blood pressure doesn't just drop out from under you. It regulates immune activity, controls inflammation, and get this, it's the exact mechanism that promotes your morning alertness. Minute by minute, it's just helping your body adapt.
Up next is Section 3, your natural cortisol rhythm, the biological clock. The absolutely crucial point here is that healthy cortisol isn't about the total amount you produce. It's about exactly when you produce it. Tracking a normal day, you get this sharp awakening response. Within 30 to 45 minutes of opening your eyes, boom, a massive healthy surge of cortisol. It raises your blood sugar and gets you ready to tackle the day. Then, it gradually fades through the afternoon and evening, making way for melatonin to rise. By night, it hits a rock-bottom low, which is so important because that allows your body to repair tissue and consolidate memories while you sleep. But what happens when that biological clock breaks? If you've ever felt completely wired but tired at midnight, or if you rely on massive cups of coffee just to survive the morning, you're likely dealing with a disrupted cortisol rhythm. You know the feeling, exhausted all day, but the second your head hits the pillow, your brain starts racing. The issue isn't necessarily producing too much cortisol overall, it's that you're producing it at the exact wrong time of day. Which brings us to Section 4, acute versus chronic stress, identifying the real villain. To understand why the rhythm breaks, we have to look at the stark contrast between two types of stress. Imagine stepping off a curb in front of a speeding car. In seconds, your cortisol and adrenaline skyrocket, your focus sharpens, and you jump back. That's acute stress. It's brilliant, it's life-saving. Even a tough workout is a healthy form of acute stress. But our modern world triggers that exact same life-or-death biological response over, say, a passive-aggressive email from your boss. Our bodies simply weren't designed for this continuous toxic activation. Let's dive into Section 5, cortisol, inflammation, and weight, unpacking the nuance.
So what are the downstream physical effects of this endless chronic stress loop? Well, it starts by entirely altering your immune system through a fascinating, though honestly troubling mechanism. Over months of repeated stress, your body basically stops listening to cortisol's signals to calm down. Normally, cortisol acts as a brake on inflammation. But with chronic stress, your immune cells get so overexposed, they become resistant to it. It's called glucocorticoid resistance. The emergency brake fails, paving the way for chronic, low-grade inflammation, which sets the stage for conditions like cardiovascular disease and depression.
And how does this connect to the bathroom scale? Well, cortisol doesn't magically break the laws of physics. Calories still matter for sure, but it heavily influences the behaviors and metabolic changes that make maintaining weight incredibly difficult. It cranks up your appetite.
It triggers intense cravings for calorie-dense, sugary foods. It pushes your body to store fat primarily around the abdomen, completely ruins your sleep quality, and promotes insulin resistance. It essentially stacks the metabolic deck against you.
Section 6. Restoring your cortisol rhythm, the restorative toolkit.
Now for the most actionable part of our explainer. Here are 5 science-backed pillars to restore your rhythm, working with your body's natural biology rather than relentlessly fighting it. Number 1, prioritize sleep with a consistent bedtime. Number 2, move regularly. Moderate activity is actually great for stress resilience. Number 3, practice active stress reduction. 4, eat a plant-rich diet. And 5, be highly mindful of caffeine and alcohol, especially later in the day when they can completely fracture your sleep architecture.
When we dig into these tools, we're really talking about actively engaging your rest and digest nervous system. Simple things like slow breathing, meditation, or just taking a walk in nature tell your brain that you are safe, literally switching off the alarm. Combine that with fueling up on polyphenol-rich foods like whole grains, leafy greens, and green tea, and you're providing the exact nutrients your body needs to clear out the damage of chronic stress. This requires a fundamental shift in perspective. The goal is absolutely not to eliminate cortisol. The goal is to restore its normal rhythm. By protecting your sleep and managing how you move and eat, you're creating the exact conditions cortisol needs to return to a balanced state after a challenge passes. You want it to rise when you need to perform and appropriately fall when it's time to recover.
There's a perfect analogy from the research for this. Think of cortisol exactly like a smoke detector. You absolutely want it to sound during a real emergency. It keeps you alive. You just don't want it going off all day because the battery is malfunctioning. So, leaving you with a thought to reflect on today. Are you going to keep blaming the alarm, or is it time to finally fix the battery? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.